Welcome to Talking with Teachers, a program of the Santa Barbara County Education Office. We are delighted to be able to showcase for you every month some of the dedicated, outstanding professionals who make a difference every day in the lives of local children. It is my privilege to introduce the host and creator of Talking with Teachers, County Superintendent Bill Cirone.
I'm Bill Cirone, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools, and I'm pleased to introduce my guest today, Katelyn Standerfer, a chemistry teacher at San Marcos High School in the Santa Barbara Unified School District. Welcome, Katelyn.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Congratulations are in order, too. I know you were selected as a Science Communications Fellow. We're one of 30 teachers nationally to be part of a Corps of Exploration aboard the exploration vessel Nautilus in the summer of 2016. That's quite an honor. What did it feel like when you heard you were selected?
It was absolutely incredible. I didn't think I would be selected. I kind of applied last minute a little bit, and I just thought, I'm just going to do this and we'll see what happens. And then when I was actually accepted, I was very surprised and very excited.
Well, we're going to talk about that as well as your teaching and some education issues in general. But first, let's start by tracing the path that you took to education in San Marcos, because it's all interconnected and it's also very interesting. So where did you grow up?
So I was born on the East Coast, but I only spent about 2 years there, and then I moved to Colorado, where I lived in a little tiny town called Sedalia, and it was very rural, kind of lived in the middle of nowhere. And I lived there for about 10 years, and then when I was 12, my family moved to Los Angeles, where I went to middle school and high school, and then I moved to Santa Barbara for college, and I've been here ever since.
And when you were in college, I assume you're talking about UCSB.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What did you major in?
I majored in aquatic biology at UCSB with a minor in science education.
And what was your career aspiration?
I wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to be specifically for large marine mammals is what I was really interested in. And that was my career aspiration from the time I was in middle school all the way up until my junior year in college.
So what changed? What was the motivator that got you interested in education?
Well, I was working at the Research Experience and Education Facility, which is the touch tanks at Campus Point at UCSB. And I was also working as a teacher's assistant for one of the professors at UCSB, TAing one of his undergraduate courses. And that's when I kind of realized that I had a passion for just teaching science in general, both in formal and informal ways. And so that was something that I decided to pursue. That combined with the fact that I realized that I wasn't really passionate about research, that I was interested in learning, but the research aspect of it didn't really excite me.
Okay, and we're going to pick up on that in a minute, but I do want to go back for a second. While you were at UCSB, you were also a collegiate rower, crewing.
Yes.
So tell us about your experience as a college on a college crewing team, what you learned and what lessons, if any, that you took away from that experience.
Rowing was one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my entire life, from a physical and a mental standpoint. You're in a boat with 8 other people, and you don't know where you're going. You're all facing backwards, and you're just pulling as hard as you can for 1.25 miles. It's basically a sprint for 1.25 miles, and at the end, you can't feel any of your limbs and you can't breathe, but it's one of the most rewarding experiences that all 9 of you have worked together towards a common goal. And it taught me a lot of teamwork. It taught me how to persevere. It taught me how to push through my own mental and physical limits. And it's been something that has really benefited me even past my rowing days.
So true life lessons.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, and I also understand you were a Noyce Scholar while you were at UCSB. Tell us about the Noyce Scholar program.
So the Noyce Scholarship Program is geared towards getting people who have an interest in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, into the teaching fields. And the idea is they want to support people who have a passion for those subjects to bring that into the classroom and become STEM teachers.
So share with us then the path that you took from UCSB to San Marcos.
It It was a really short path, actually. I did a graduate program at UCSB where I got my teaching credential and a master's in education. And while I was doing that, I had my student teaching. One of my first placements was at San Marcos with Rob Gettler, who's a physics teacher there. And after I graduated from UCSB, I was looking for a job, and one of the chemistry teachers, Kim Tilton, called me up and said, "We're looking for a chemistry teacher." And I said, that sounds great. And so I applied and I got the job, and I've been there ever since.
So what's your current teaching assignment?
I am teaching honors and college preparatory chemistry.
And I had mentioned earlier the fellowship and the special opportunity aboard the exploration vessel Nautilus. Tell us about that experience.
It was amazing. I got to spend 2 weeks aboard a ship just off the coast of Santa Barbara. We were mostly around the Channel Islands, which was really cool because it was right in my backyard. And I was spending time with the most amazing people I've ever met. They were all incredibly intelligent and all working towards the common goal of educating the public and exploring the ocean. And that was really amazing. And they were so kind and so intelligent, and it was one of the best experiences.
And how have you used some of those experiences in your classroom?
So one of the things that is really facing the globe right now is global climate change. And so one of the things we were looking at when I was on the ship was the effect of ocean acidification, which is a side effect of climate change, on deep sea cold water corals that grow off of the coast of the Channel Islands. And so understanding ocean acidification, that's chemistry. And so I've been working with the other chemistry teacher as well as some researchers that work for NOAA in developing some lessons that I can bring into my chemistry classroom about the effects of ocean acidification on calcified organisms.
We also have a brief clip to share here, a video from your Nautilus mission that actually went, I understand, viral with almost 2 million hits on YouTube. The title is?
The Purple Orb.
The Purple Orb. So let's run that video.
Up there, like 4 centimeters, maybe. Oh,
What is the
could be
diameter
like 6,
of your
7.
what's that?
So alien.
Gun.
God, it's like
It looks like a
moving.
disco ball right now.
Yeah.
The laser's next to it.
Michael, did you hear Lee's question?
No, what was
What's
that?
the diameter of the slurp?
You know what? I'm not too sure. When did you know?
I don't know exactly.
Well, I can
I think they
put it up
usually
against it before I try on suction. We'll see if it fits.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's squishy. It might be squishy.
We'll keep them
All right,
both in
Wendy, you ready
frame.
for the suction?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Ready?
Tunica behind it's really
Go.
Good, it's on.
So,
Oh, wow.
okay.
Wait till we see.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
We're waiting. Where is it?
Sediment.
There it goes.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
What is it?
Oh, look, it's flat on the bottom.
What is it?
Oh, come on.
I reckon it's some kind of cnidarian. Do you think?
Yeah.
It looks.
Wow, it was
Well-
that easy to ID? Come on.
No, no. Let's see.
That's still living.
Zoom out.
No, I
Ed,
don't think
please.
so.
Yeah,
It's
sorry.
hollow.
It's
Maybe
ho-
it's a
it-
sponge.
You know, one of the things I love about that clip is the real sense of joy that's truly transmitted just by listening to the scientists and researchers in the control room.
Yeah, you know, it was really exciting. I was on the ship when that was discovered. I wasn't personally in the control van at the time, but you really can hear the excitement, and that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about being on the Nautilus is that everyone was so enthusiastic about what we were doing, and it really makes you realize that, you know, scientists are people too. They don't live in this ivory tower of academia, you know, that they're real people and they get excited about this stuff. And I think that's one of the special things about the Nautilus is that there's a live feed. Whenever we're exploring, whenever we have the vessels down, we're streaming live. And so anytime we see something, the public sees something. If we're talking to each other, the public's hearing it. And so they really get a sense of what it's like to be exploring the ocean floor. And you can really hear that in this video.
And how did your students react when you showed them the video?
they think it's the coolest thing. It's so exciting. We get a lot of like, oh, it's a spider sack, or an alien sack, or dog dropped a chew toy or something like that. But they definitely think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so let's move into Katelyn's classroom. Tell us about your teaching style.
I'm a very enthusiastic teacher. I love science. It's always been my passion, and so one of my number one goals in being a teacher is to share that passion with my students and make sure that they understand how cool science can be. And I'm really focused on making sure that they're thinking about what it is that they're doing, that they're not just going through the motions, that they're thinking about why does this happen and why is that the case and what evidence do I have to support this statement. And so I ask them a lot of questions. I'm not a big answer giver. I'm a big questioner, which can sometimes be frustrating, I imagine. But I think it's what allows for the most learning, is if they have to think about it themselves and figure out their own answers instead of just relying on me for them.
So you've kind of answered this question, but I'm going to ask it again because you could come at it from a different angle. What are your particular areas of strengths and special interest?
I would say, oh gosh, my particular areas of strength are, enthusiasm and energy, and always being open to questions from students. I'm always telling them, if you have a question, please ask me. Don't be afraid. I want to help you. I'm here for you. I have an open door policy. Whenever they need help, they can walk in. I pretty much live in my classroom. So I would say that's a big area of strength. I would also say that, my background in being on a lot of sports teams means that I'm really big into working as a team. They spend a lot of time in their lab groups working together and using each other's strengths to help each other out.
So technology, that certainly revolutionized the way teachers teach and students learn. How do you use technology in your classroom?
So we have a couple different ways that we use technology. When I'm, giving a lecture about a particular topic, oftentimes I'll encourage the students to pull the lecture up on their smart devices as they're sitting in their desks so that they can follow along as we're going, because they can't always see the screen, or I'm moving at a different pace than they are. So that's one way. Another way is I'll sometimes give little online quizzes as a check for understanding, to see where they are with the material, and it gives them instantaneous feedback. Oh, I got this question wrong, so then they can come ask me, oh, Ms. Stand, I don't understand this, can you explain this to me more? Or we'll talk about it as a class after the quiz is over. And sometimes we'll use it in labs as well, so we'll have temperature probes or pH probes that are far more accurate than your traditional thermometers.
As you're new to teaching, but in your short teaching career, have there been special highlights that you really cling to, that were really very important to you, above and beyond what you do every day?
There have been a couple. Both of them came from girls that were in my class my first year teaching, and one of them was a girl who came up to me her senior year, which was last year, and she said, Miss Stand, you're the only chemistry teacher I've ever had, but I'm going to major in chemistry because of you. And that almost made me cry because, that's really special, and, I had a big impact on her life, and that was one of my goals going into science teaching, was to have a positive impact. And the other one was from another girl who had been in my class, and she had also been a TA for me. She had gone on a class trip to Costa Rica a couple summers ago. And during that class trip, myself and the other chaperone were kayaking, and she was in a boat, and so I'd given her my phone to hold on to. And a couple weeks later, I was looking through my phone and found that she had written a note in my phone saying, Miss Stan, you've been such a huge influence on my life, and you've been such a positive role model of what a strong woman can be, and all these really nice things, and that actually made me cry.
Yeah, well, it's a real validation of you as a person, your teaching style, and just as important, why we teach, why you go into teaching, what it's all about. And speaking of going into teaching, has the reality of teaching differed in any way from some of your preconceptions about what it might be when you were pursuing your undergraduate degree and your teaching credential?
Yes and no. I would say teaching is far more exhausting than I ever thought it could be.
More so in sports?
Different than sports. I would say that it is more rewarding and more frustrating than I could ever think it would be. I got into teaching to have a positive impact on people's lives, the way that my science teacher has had on my life. But I've been surprised about, how much of an impact I can really have, both positive, or negative. And so, thinking every day about how can I make my impact positive is something that I really try and focus on, and how can I be a positive influence in their lives.
So let me pull apart a couple of questions from your answer. More rewarding and more frustrating. Rewarding. Talk to us about the rewards.
Seeing the light bulbs go off when students get it, I can't get enough of that. Seeing them go, oh yeah, no way, I get this, I can do this. Or just, watching something happen in a lab and going, whoa, that's so cool. I mean, that puts a smile on my face no matter how many times I see it. And watching them get excited about science. I mean, some of them come into my classroom and say, I don't really like science, it's not my favorite. Like, I've had a really bad experience with my science classes and I find it really boring. And then, getting them into a lab where they're lighting stuff on fire and, playing with dry ice and that kind of thing and watching their faces light up, that's very rewarding.
And the flip side, more frustrating.
You pour your heart and soul into teaching. You put everything you've got into it. And when you have students that they aren't getting it or they don't care as much as you do, it's incredibly frustrating. You want to teach them and you want the best for them, but you can only do so much if they don't meet you halfway. And so it's really frustrating in that regard when they aren't putting in the work that that they can.
And how about parent involvement? That's certainly considered vital to a child's education. Parent involvement tends to slacken quite a bit at the secondary level. First of all, how important do you feel parent involvement is, particularly in the areas that you teach, chemistry? And what techniques do you use to get parents involved?
I think parent involvement is incredibly important at home, in terms of making sure that the students their kids know that education is important and that it will, get them places that they want to go in life. And, doing well in chemistry class is an important part of your general education, for example. I think that, some parents are overly involved in that they don't let their kids make mistakes, and some parents aren't involved enough in that they aren't in tune with what's going on in their kids' lives. And some parents are doing great. All of them are doing the best they can. And, I'll reach out to parents when I feel that their kid is slipping or struggling or, that I would like to meet with them because I think that there might be something going on that I'd like to address. But I really try to emphasize to the parents that, your kids are going to be adults soon. They're 14, 15, 16 years old, and they need to learn how to advocate for themselves. And so while I love parents and I love talking to them, I would much rather talk to the kids so that they can learn how to talk to authority figures and how to talk to their teachers to get what they need and what they want.
I know you're a lifelong learner. So share with us, what are some of the most inspiring and influential learning experiences that you've had that has positively impacted your teaching?
Well, obviously the Nautilus is a huge one. I mean, that's the one that comes forefront to my mind is, being able to be involved with this ocean research. And, it's something that I anticipate being involved in for a very long time. But it's also the small things. I mean, I take every opportunity to learn things. It's one of the things that I'm the most passionate about is learning new things, and so I subscribe to newsletters and I go to conferences and I'm always picking people's brains. So that's another big one too. We've been working a lot on implementing the next generation science standards, so we've had a lot of pull-out days where we're learning about how to implement these standards and what that means and growing our professional learning base.
Teachers impact the lives of their students in many profound ways. You've shared some of those. but also very often students touch the lives of their teachers in very profound ways. You've shared a few of those as well. Are there other stories you'd like to share with us about students who have really touched you?
There are, there's students that touch me in ways that make me happy, and there are ones that make me reflect on, my own teaching practice and kind of make me realize that, there are things going on outside of the classroom, where I hear about a student who has been kicked out of their house, or a student whose friend just died, or something like that. And so, I try and reflect on that and think about, if I see a student who's having a bad day, it's not about me. And what can I do to support that student so that they feel that they're important and that their life matters, and that I understand that, life does not revolve around chemistry. And so, when I have those kind of revelations, I take that in and I reflect on it, and I think, how can I help this impact my teaching experience? And so, I have formed a couple special relationships with my students who I know are going through hard times, and I'll just periodically check in with them. How are you doing today? How are things going? And, recognizing that the impact isn't just about science. Yeah. It's about who I am as a person and who they are as a person.
So for you, what's the best part of being a teacher?
Hands down, it's interacting with my students. Every single day, they put a smile on my face. Even when they're frustrating me and making me pull my hair out, they always put a smile on my face, and that's why I do it. I love interacting with my students every day.
And what's the most challenging part?
Interacting with my students every day. I mean, have you ever spent a day interacting with 105 14 and 15-year-olds? It is frustrating at times, and it is exhausting, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to new teachers?
Stick with it, and don't be too hard on yourself. Nobody is a fantastic teacher their first year, or their second year, or their third year. It takes time to get good at something, and give yourself the leeway to get better at something. It's going to be frustrating, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be exhausting, but stick with it because it'll get better.
In that same vein, what are the qualities that make for a good teacher?
Passion about what you're doing, passion for learning, and for interacting with people. A lot of people say that teachers have to be extroverts, but I don't agree with that. I think that you just have to have a knack for communicating and understanding. You have to have compassion for what your students are going through, and understanding that their life is not your life. So I would say that those are some key components.
You had mentioned earlier about a teacher, science teacher, who had a profound influence on you, and that was in passing. You mentioned that. And I mean, clearly to me that's mentoring. And mentoring is such an important part of education and of the teaching profession. Obviously, it's played a critical role in your life. Share with us some of the mentors and the impacts that they've had on you.
Some of my biggest mentors were my science teachers. I can name 3 science teachers that had a huge impact on my life. One was my 7th grade science teacher, Mr. Holcomb, who was kind of a goofy guy. He liked doing science magic tricks in class and telling lame jokes, which I thought were great. A lot of my classmates groaned, but I thought they were hilarious. So he was a big influence in my science career, because 7th grade is the first time when you really have a science class, as opposed to just some time out of the day that is spent doing sciencey things. I would say my chemistry / AP bio teacher, because Miss Peroy, she taught both classes. She was a big impact on my life. And then my AP environmental science teacher, Mr. Lawrence, were probably the biggest mentors that I had in my secondary years. And then I had a couple college professors that were really impactful in not only my science learning, but my drive towards becoming a science teacher.
And what motivated you personally to, early on, to have such a love for science?
I've always been a curious person. I drove my mom nuts asking questions about why this and why that, and coming home from school every day, I'd be, did you know this, and did you know that, and did you know this? And one of her favorite stories is me chattering on about, did you know, did you know, did you know? And then I ended with, and did you know that reindeer can fly? So, I've always been passionate about learning and about knowledge, and it kind of hit me when I was a junior in college that maybe my calling is to share that passion with other people. And then when I moved to California in 7th grade, or just before 7th grade, I fell in love with the ocean, and there was this phenomena happening which we now know to be, the red tides, but it was causing all of these dolphins to wash up on shore and dead, and nobody knew why. And so that kind of piqued my curiosity, like what could possibly be going on? Why is this happening? That why question again. So I've just always had an innate curiosity for the world around me.
So you're very passionate, you work hard, you're really committed. What do you do to relax?
I really enjoy working out. I go to the gym almost every day with my boyfriend. We lift weights together. I play soccer when I can. I'm in a women's league that meets once a week. I like to read books, and I like to hang out with my friends.
So as we wind down, if you could send a brief message to young people today, to your students, what would it be?
Never stop learning. The greatest disservice you can do to yourself is to say, I have learned all I need to learn, and be content with the knowledge that you have.
And how about to their parents?
I would say, parents, you're doing a great job. Let your kids make cheap mistakes. Let them make mistakes. It won't hurt them.
And how about a message to your fellow teachers, your colleagues?
Keep working hard. It's been a rough transition with the new standards, and we're working through it, and I know everyone's working hard, and just keep supporting each other.
And finally, if you could send a message to the community at large.
Have patience. We're working really hard to educate your students, and we all want what's best for them, so have patience to let us, teach them.
Well, thank you, Katelyn. I really appreciate the conversation and your caring, your compassion, your drive, your energy, your skill. Your commitment to your students, it all shines through. Your good work clearly touches lives and helps also make learning come alive every day for your students. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm Bill Cirone, thanking you for joining us and signing off for this edition of Talking with Teachers. Teachers like Katelyn Standerfer, who bring to life that vital message: learn today, lead tomorrow, public schools work.